It also went well for the story. It just kind of happened that when you watch this animation, it's very unsettling. And when this guy kind of gets up in your grill really close and he's staring at Leah, it just has a very uneasy feel to it because you really see this sort of skeletal, toothy creature talk right at you. The next challenge after that was Asmodean's army. Now, Nick kind of gave us a criteria for this. For Asmodean's army, it had to be, in New World, just countless numbers of demons. It had to be chaotic, and it just needed to be sort of a primordial mess that was coming out of this mountain. So here's an example of some of the different animations that we did to populate the scene. Here's some of the animation cycles which we use to populate the very, very far background of the scenes. Now we also do some more high-definition animations that are called hero animations that we use in the foreground, and that's the stuff that's right near the camera. And here's another thing I wanted to show you. This is an example of one of those high-definition animations. But I'm showing it to you because you don't really get a good look at this particular animation in the final cinematic. So you're getting a special Blizzcon treat here. This is the wing demon walking, and there's a special treatment that we did on the fingers and the wings and things like that. Alright, and let's see, who's next? I'm going to give it back over to Jim and talk a little bit more about how we do the crowds.
Thanks. So, I'm Diablo. Diablo is, I remember Diablo 1 was the first game I ever played where I would just lose time. I'd wake up out of this Diablo coma and realize I hadn't eaten and days had passed. And Diablo was all just about slaughtering demons, the whole game, just wanton murder of these things, right? And so we knew we had a shot where we just had, tons of demons and really show off, what Diablo is all about. And the cool thing is you get to kill these guys in the game, these actual demons. It's awesome. So this is an example. This terrain on the bottom is the entire, what our environmental model is built as this huge valley. And one of our concerns was that we'd actually have to fill up this entire valley full of demons. But luckily, once the camera was in place, you can see that that little red line represents the only demon we actually have in the scene. So we get cut away with a lot of that. In the upper left, you can see that as the trail kind of fades off towards the mountain, the demons themselves become smaller than individual pixels, so we just say, okay, we don't need any more demons back there. So that's how we go about populating the scene. And one of the, we pay so much attention to silhouettes and detail at close cinematics. And so here is an example of some of the director's notes. So you'll notice we're going and we'll change individual demons' weapons. We'll say, well, this guy's carrying an axe, but we want the profile to look, a little more dangerous, more threatening. So we're going to change these guys to have full arms and just completely change. We'll go into individual detail of adjusting the demons in this army that we have, thousands of. And in the end, this is kind of how it looks. Not all of the demons are in here, but there's an idea. Wing demon James was talking about. And, animation and rigging, this is just a small part of what goes into cinematic. There's also effects which really tie everything together and are so important. Mike is here to talk about that.
Thanks, Jim. So I wanted to take back to some of those character effects I was talking about earlier and talked about an effect that actually didn't make it into the cinematic, which was Asmo's lava drool. So originally, Asmo was envisioned to have constant drooling lava coming out of his mouth while he was speaking. Here you can see some early tests for some of the things that we tried, just trying to get fluid on the surface that was deforming and sort of complex, like maybe perhaps we didn't have animation done at this point, we just wanted to try it out. And we started working with this going forward. Here's a early take that kind of looks like my daughter, a 2-year-old at dinner. How adorable. But as we started to pull it back into the real world, here's another early test. While Asmo was actually speaking, we were finding that the lava was starting to have a lot more questions than it was actually trying to answer. Like, for example, how fast was this lava going to move? Or how much farther down the chest was it going to go? And were we going to be worried about continuity of lava between shots? Because that would really take the level of difficulty way up. Here's another example where we took the speed and the viscosity of the lava way up and way down so you can actually slow it down. And even this one, we're just wondering, maybe this isn't the right track. So finally, this is our final concept drool. You can see by now we've actually pulled it way back. We only have 3 little rivulets of lava that are being pulled out of the corners of the mouth. And actually, we took this one all the way to completion. You can see here our final beauty pass for that particular shot. Just these 3 little tiny rivulets of lava. But during the entire process while we were working on this, and artist Billy Barch was working on this, we were beginning to wonder, was this just too distracting? And it was kind of making Asmo feel sloppy, and actually even worse than that, we started to make him feel comical, which is not a story point. That's not something we wanted to go for. So we did it. Here's a little breakdown of some of these more traditional effects on Asmo. Obviously, we have a glowing mouth. We have smoke and embers coming out, glowing eyes, and we even have a heat distortion plate on top of that. A little atmosphere on top of that, and there you have it. So I know I kind of glassed over quite a number of the lighting passes in there. Let me turn it over to Grant. He can tell you a little bit more about that.
All right, thanks, Mike. So as a lighter, I've got one of the best jobs in the whole place, and that's because I get to light everybody's awesome work upstream. But seriously, the main job of the lighter is to light in a way that supports the story. Now, Black Soulstone was calling for something that was a lot more realistic and less stylized than some of our previous work. But when you say realistic, it's not quite the same as reality. And we still, everything is very designed, and I would say the stylized reality is what we were really going for. Now, in order to achieve that more realistic look that we were going for, we had to adopt a number of techniques and technologies that have been used by some of the major motion picture visual effects studios. And I wanted to just say a quick thanks to John Lands and Chris Rock and all of the tools and development team guys who did such an amazing job improving our RenderMan pipeline throughout this production. So, lighting Leah, nobody looks good under a harsh spotlight. And so when we got into lighting Leah, we had to make some choices regarding the type of light sources that we were using. And here I'll show you a couple of different lighting passes that we did for Leah for this particular shot. And I'll talk a little bit more about what I'm mentioning here. Light can be hard or soft. And basically what that means is a hard light gets very sharp shadows, gets a lot of crisp details. A soft light is a lot more flattering for a character. How you achieve a hard or soft light is really a matter of how big the light source is. So we took some liberties here with Leah, and what we did was we combined elements from a hard spotlight, like the specular details on her face, with the softer roll-off that you see on this soft area light, and we combine them together to achieve the final result. Now when you're lighting a shot is all about layers. And there's 2 kinds of layers that we deal with in lighting that I'll talk about. The first I call lighting passes. So here you can see some of the different lighting passes for Leah. We've got key light, rim light, environment fill. Now, light is additive, and what that lets us do is we can render out each of these light passes completely separate, and then we just add them all together to create the final result. So here you can see them adding together, and we've got the total lighting result for Leah. Now, once we've added all of these lights together, we can turn around and tint each one of them to a different color and intensity in order to control the final lighting for the scene. So here I'll show you an example where I'm tinting the different light colors to create completely different lighting results just using the same lighting passes. So the second kind of lighting layer that we talked about, I call render elements. And these are just the various components of a shot. And sometimes you have to separate a shot into these render elements simply to get it to render. And other times you separate it so that you have control over each of the layers. And so these are, you've got a map painting background, you've got Asmodan, Leah, etc. And each of these render elements basically just gets layered from the back to the front. And so this is sort of a simplified example of how that works. We generally have many, many more layers than this, but this gives you the idea. And so here's the final lighting for the shot. Now we'll talk a little bit more about some of these render elements that you see here, some of the effects passes. I'll hand it back to Mike.
Thanks, Fred. So I wanted to talk about a more traditional effect because we were talking about character specs. I want to talk about the wall destruction shot. Here you have two concepts. We had to take down the interior of the Black Soulstone and reveal this volcano and the harbor beyond all sort of in one shot. This is going to be very complicated. We want the shot to be as detailed as possible, and we knew it was going to be a challenge right from the start. Here's the shot as it exists in the cinematic. You can see we go from an interior environment, and then we have to have this exposure change that goes with all that to see the volcano of the line as Asmodan reveals his plan. So with that in mind, we wanted to cut up this entire wall, and we knew that was going to be very, very challenging. So I'll introduce one technical term, which is called wordline. Wordline is a type of noise that you can use in production, and basically you can imagine if you scattered a whole bunch of points on a plane, and if I drew individual lines equal distance from all those points, I'd end up with something that looks like this, sort of like a cellular texture, or maybe dried out paint on the ground. If you take out the center of all these pieces and just leave the lines, you have something that sort of looks like a shattered window, and you can easily use these types of lines, of course, to cut up anything that you want. Add those things together, or start combining them, some of these individual shapes, and you start to get some pretty organic looking type materials. And that's kind of what we have here. So this was partially some of the way that the wall was cut up. Here's the final animation of the wall, just a preview. And I just wanted to point out, and put my hat off to James' team, that this wall basically did not go through a simulation. Our director had something very specific in mind when he wanted to have this wall fall. And so most of these pieces were animated by hand, so crazy. Thank you. So once we had our animated wall, we decided we would take it a little further and give it back to the modeling team. Here are some of the hero sculpts that the modeling did for some of those pieces, and started putting pieces of the wall, the interior, almost like bricks and mortar and even cement, you can imagine in some of these. And once they were done with that, we handed that back and we had our initial wall. So let's get to some of those effects passes that Graham was talking about. Here's our shot again, and we'll go a little bit into it, and then we'll freeze the frame for a second. So we'll start off with the initial one, which is just sort of little particle points and dust.